And we're live. All right. Today we're here with Chase Kneib. He's an Apex physical therapist. But right before we start chatting with Chase, talking to Chase, go ahead and comment below or comment in the comments section for attendance. I gotta know that they're all here, so I gotta jot down a couple of names. We kind of watch as they come in. So just know that they're chatting from their phones and tablets and sitting at a stoplight down the street on Big Ben because they forgot it was, studio. Thanks, Noah. And then we'll rock and roll. All right, so keep letting me know you're here, and I'll be jotting down names. Thanks, Nancy. Hey, Sydney. Maya and Maya. All right, so we have a pretty good mix of students, mostly freshmen and sophomores. They're a lot of physical therapy. Like I said, athletic training, a couple interested in athletic training, maybe nutrition. Who else we got? We got a few. I've talked to a few even about medical supply sales. I don't know how much you guys deal with sales, a couple occupational therapy. So I might ask you about OT, a couple others. But all right, so keep letting me know you're here. Jack. Nice. What's up, Nate? I see you. Miles. These Cano. All right. All right, a couple of you have emailed me. Now that I'm seeing a couple names, a couple of you guys have emailed me, so I'll get back to you on that or email me again. But otherwise, all right, keep letting me know you're here. Otherwise, let's rock and roll. So Chase and I have been talking a little bit. So he is at, where's your location exactly? So Apex.
Sunset Hills. Yep, Apex Network PT, Sunset Hills. It's off of Gravois and Lindbergh.
All right, so not too far from here. All right, a few minutes south, whatever. And he didn't mention that about. So who do you have like right now? Who's in your clinic as far as just employees, people working with others?
So I've got my front desk. This is a brand new clinic by the way, which I was just telling you. So the only other therapist that comes in here, I've got 2 OTs that come in 3 times a week just to do hand therapy, which is a new thing we've been starting up.
Yeah.
But yeah, here pretty soon. The clinic is definitely big enough. The goal is to make it a 2 PT clinic with 1 OT.
All right.
At least.
So you're the PT. All right. So is there one person who works, and I ask this because what's up, a job, ideally you're interning, you can observe, you can do different things. But as far as working at the desk and just being in the physical therapy world and kind of understanding some of that as well, or the accounting involved or the insurance, involved and things like that. Do you have one front desk person who's working 40 hours a week?
Yep.
All right.
That's right.
Wow. And then your OTs, are they also working, are they bouncing around different Apex clinics? Are they contracting? How's your OT work?
So yeah, they right now our OT, at least in St. Louis area, for the most part, it was just in Baldwin, which is actually where I started with Apex while they were still building this clinic. And so I got to know them really well. One of them, Jeff, I know I'm biased, but probably the best CHT hand therapist OT in St. Louis area.
Wow,
every time I bring up his name when I'm marketing to other docs, they're like, "Oh, Jeff, yeah, I know him. He's a great therapist."
Wow.
But,
right.
Yeah, but anyway, they wanted to expand, get him down here south, and start getting a little more, just more convenience for patients with hand therapy.
Sure.
And so we're just kind of test piloting it, right now. He's coming down 3 times a week on half days, and just seeing how much business we can get with it. Yeah.
So your OTs, we have a few students interested in occupational therapy. And we've talked about that before. I had a client who had Parkinson's disease, and I trained him in his home, but he'd have an OT visit the house and just kind of look at ergonomics, chairs. He'd look at carpeting, maybe a carpet that's too thick. I remember his wife was complaining once because she just picked out this beautiful carpet, but it was a trip hazard, right? Or there's trim walking into the house with the porch, So there's things like that as far as OT goes. But what kind of situation, when do you need hand therapy? Is that a stroke? What else?
A lot of times it's actually surprisingly a lot of work comp. It's guys who are, getting their hands smashed in equipment. Occasionally you get the residential one where maybe they're operating a lawnmower and it goes wrong and, something gets cut open. So it's, a lot of it is surprisingly trauma based. And then, you get your easy stuff like your arthritis patients and your fractures and stuff like that. But yeah, a lot of it seems to be trauma based. And I do think that he will see a decent number of like carpal tunnel type stuff too.
Okay, yeah, post-surgical or pre.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mhm.
You say arthritis is easy. It's easy to, but that's a tough one to. I
Yeah.
had a one client, 78-year-old client of mine yesterday. We talked about the difference between osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis,
Yeah.
and she was confused and like what arthritis is. So we kind of broke all that down, and so that's good to know. I mean, because I know Beth has talked about that. I think it was on her mind last year about having OTs and PTs, and when PTs can do the job of an OT, but a good OT specializes so much that it's nice to have
Mhm.
them around. And is that still? Do you know? Is that? I imagine. Like Jeff, if he's a little bit older, he's been doing this for a while. He has his master's degree. It's still an MOT program. Do you know that's switching to DOT, I guess?
Yep.
As well?
I saw that. Yep.
Okay. So just for what it's worth, you guys are wrapping your head around graduate school. And we'll talk to Chase a little bit about his experience at Missouri State, right?
Southwest Baptist. Yeah.
But
it's like 10 minutes away from Missouri State, though. So
the reason I said that is because I had a student who was here for your class last year, and then she transferred out and went to Missouri State. I was like,
okay.
Well, because they have a DPT program I wanted to get back into. She had some family and things like that. But all right, so Southwest Baptist. What am I saying? As far as looking at, is it? It'll typically be a 3-year DPT experience. We can talk about that in a bit. Versus OT, you might be able to do a 2-year program. There's also some hybrid programs that are popping up, which might be some online, which, I think 10 years ago, if you're a professional and you're older and you have a family and you're going to do an online program, that's one thing. But I think it's going to become more popular now with COVID and everything else. Hybrid meaning half of it's online, but then you show up for labs and certain work and things like that. But all right, so it's 10:07. Who have you seen today? Like, how many patients have you seen today?
So today was a weird day with me having this blocked and everything. I've actually only got 2 this morning. Both are evals, and then I've got 10 this afternoon, which is a little bit closer to normal. In a 10-hour day, I'll probably see anywhere between 15 to 20. 20 being a busy day. I mean, you probably want a little bit of help if you're going to see 20 in one day.
Sure.
But yeah.
So an eval. So when you do an evaluation, because you don't have direct access. So you explain a little bit what direct access is. So my knee hurts and I want to go see someone. I'm in Missouri, right? Am I going to a doctor who, can I come see you directly? How does that work?
So in Missouri, the direct access, it's what's the word? It's the term they use is like restricted direct access. So technically, you could come off the street and come see a PT, but you can only see us for 3 visits, and after that, we have to get a physician referral. That rarely happens because most people would just rather get the prescription. Yeah. So you go see your orthopedic specialist. You can actually even just go to primary care, but I would strongly encourage an orthopedic specialist. They'll do a lot of the same stuff that you learn in PT school. Besides, imaging, we don't really do imaging, but they'll do your ligament testing and stuff like if it's for your knee, and just make sure there's no red flags, basically. Like there's no, this person needs surgery for sure. And then once they find out that everything's good, they say, okay, conservative management, that's what we're going to do. We're going to send you to PT. Usually they give you 8 to 12 visits, and you go from there.
So that initial visit then is
So then when they come in, I see them and I do my own examination. I've already got a good amount of information from the doc, which really all I need is like what their diagnosis was. Is it arthritis? Is it partial meniscus tear? Is it like patellar tendonitis or patellofemoral disorders, stuff like that? If I see that, then I already can just start. My hypothesis is already there because the doc already gave me one, and so I can start testing for that. And if I see something different, then I can put it in the note and let the doc know. But for the most part, usually they're like those orthopedic specialists. They're pretty good at their diagnostics. So
sure. Yeah. And there is a difference, and not to get too much into that, but people do see an internist or a primary doctor versus an orthopedic. You just have to be prepared to go. When you go to an orthopedic, they have 2 options. Well, 3 options, right? It's either PT, a drug, or surgery. And I think a lot of people say they get nervous. I'm like, well, no, that's how they work. Like they have a knife, but they also have a pen to send you to PT, right? So just know that that's where that conversation is going to happen.
Well, and I will add too. That's the one thing that's Kind of nice is we do get a little bit of that direct access feel whenever I do see a primary care physician referral, because usually it'll just say on the prescription, right knee pain. And then I'll be like, okay, well, what does that mean? So then I have to actually do a fairly thorough examination. Sure. So you do get a little practice at doing a real autonomous assessment, which is kind of nice. Yeah.
So actually this last spring, but as far as opportunities for the students out there, and Chase can speak to this then, you'll need some observation hours, both kind of formally, meaning you got to write down some observation hours that are signed off by a PT, a licensed PT. But then also we have a semester-long internship class. But you also just want to walk into different clinics, and we have opportunities to walk into an Athletico, walk into an Apex, and, to observe and just get a feel for, is this where you want to show up every day? So how many hours a week? You're working 40 hours right now?
Yeah.
How many hours are you scheduled a week? And then how many hours are you actually in the building?
So I am in the clinic 40 hours a week at least. And then I probably average about 50. Yeah. Right. In total. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm also the clinic manager. So I have to do extra stuff.
All right. So we'll talk about that. When did you graduate DPT school?
It was actually just 2019, just a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago.
All right. So when we talk about ideas for what you're studying and what you're learning, more than just therapy or anything outside of that, when it comes to business, accounting, leadership, anything like that, Chase is already in that position after 2 years out of school, which is sweet. I mean, I think it speaks to a lot of Chase's ability and his leadership, his work ethic, et cetera, but it's also something to be prepared for, that you can't, you're not just going to be working with, well, maybe you could choose to just work with knees and people, maybe you welcome this route. All right. Mighty Zane, greetings from South Florida. What's going on? All right. So we're South Florida in the house. So anyway, all right. So you're an undergraduate. So most of your students are freshmen and sophomore. What were you doing freshman and sophomore year? As far as, did you walk into exercise science and say you want to be a PT? Or what were you thinking at this age? 19 years old, 20?
I was still deciding what I wanted to do. That's for sure. I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I was in a health science major. I was taking physics and organic chemistry and thought I wanted to be a dentist, all that kind of stuff. I will say that doing the health science route with the thought of going to dental school or some sort of med school, I thought that really helped, because it forced you to take some science classes that taught you, maybe not taught me information that I necessarily needed for PT, but taught me how to study for hard classes. Because then when I got to grad school, it was more, you had to actually try. So I did, that was really beneficial. I do see somebody has a question. It looks like, is physical therapy internship worth it after PT school in a specialized field? I'm wondering if you mean like going into like a residency or a crap. What are they called? I think I know what you're asking.
You get a specialization in like sports medicine or a specialization in something.
Oh, okay.
Like
so
that, maybe
like an OCS or like a SCS. So yeah, you can get like an orthopedic specialty and stuff like that, or like a sports specialty or neuro specialty in PT. It requires basically an extra test and a lot of studying. The benefit is you will know a lot more and you will be a lot better at understanding the research, finding research for certain conditions. But I wouldn't call it a disadvantage. But what stinks is right now doctors, at least in Missouri, since it is not direct access, doctors don't really know what those extra letters mean. So the weight might not be noticed by physicians that you're trying to get referrals from. I mean, you could tell them about it, tell them how smart you are, which you are, but they might not recognize it as something with that much weight.
Yeah. When Chase says weight, you're talking about like what letters are behind your name, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some people recognize DPT, they'll recognize like DC, they'll recognize MD,
Mm-hmm.
right? But yeah, sometimes people have all these letters and it's hard to say whether. And you meet people, they like to throw all those letters behind their name and their signature.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there at times. To understand kind of what investment is worth it. Does it mean, you make are you making more money? You know, are you getting
Mhm.
more referrals? What does that mean as far as a specialization? If that's what you're
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, well, and it depends too on what, like what you said, it's what your goal is. You know, you're trying to get more referrals. You know, it might not actually get you more referrals, but are you trying to make your patients better? Then heck yeah, it's probably going to make your patients a lot better because you're going to be a better clinician. So
Have you thought about some of those as far
yeah,
as you know?
absolutely. OCS is something I've definitely thought about. I think it applies perfectly to what I do. I just haven't jumped on it yet.
Yeah. So Zane asks again, about a PTA. Talk, you know, I think for some of the students, and I've had students go, you know, I want to go DPT for sure. Like that's what I'm going to do. Chemistry's rough right now. Physics is no fun, but I want to be a PT. I'm going to do it, or an OT. Other students get to junior year and think, you know, I might go the PTA route, or I might look into something else. As far as the difference between, I don't know, a tech, an aide, and an assistant, right? So you're bringing up, you know, talk a little bit about that for a couple of them, and then we can maybe make note. I think the PTA pay schedule is going to be so different everywhere.
Yeah. Everything's different state to state in general, and Medicare keeps on trying to cut reimbursement rates for PT. PTA right now, that's the one that's kind of getting more attacked. We actually were just off a couple of meetings over the last few months where if we see any Medicare, it needs to go on a PT schedule because they get discounted reimbursements if it goes on a PTA schedule. There's reasonings as to why. I honestly don't know. They don't have, if they have any reasons, they're probably not good ones. PTAs, all the PTAs I've worked with, smart people, you know, they do everything that I do. The only difference is they just didn't get the schooling on the assessment, on like the diagnosis part, the assessment part. But outside of that, like they know what's appropriate in terms of treatment intervention, whether it be manual therapy or exercise intervention. You know, they are just as capable as any PT, and some more than capable.
The PT is sort of if a DPT and a licensed PT these days is going to have that 3-year graduate degree more or less. A PTA is kind of an associate's degree in physical therapy. It's kind of like a PA. You can look at a physician assistant school. That's kind of like an associate's degree in medicine, right? So the 2-year degree, but that's another option with getting a degree in exercise science. You have to take 1 or 2 other biology classes, maybe a microbiology, maybe an organic chem, but you can go to PA school as well. All right, so you switched over. You switched over. Decide whatever sophomore, junior year. You're doing exercise science.
Yep. Yeah. So I switched over my junior year. Well, I stayed health science because I was already on track, but then I was taking more physics classes, exercise like kinesiology, stuff like that. And then, from there, the rest is history. You know, take the GRE and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, the GRE. We have some students asking about the GRE every once in a while. Probably, I don't know. Maybe they hated the ACT. They didn't like to take the SAT. Now I know some GATs are not. We'll get the Zane's question. It's not. I mean, it's going to grow in a lot of ways. We can talk about that in a second. How it's growing and why it's growing, but no, people are getting older and they want to keep moving. You know, so we're not getting any healthier as a country, unfortunately, and that's getting exposed in a lot of different ways. But I think people want to keep moving, and we're becoming. I feel like half the country is becoming more active and health aware, while the other half of the country is becoming more sedentary and more comfortable.
And I'll add to that. One of the nice things about PT switching over to the doctorate is all about the research, finding evidence to support physical therapy and its benefits. And so, as more and more of that comes out, which they've already found plenty that looks great, and that's why a lot of doctors like to refer to PT, is because they've seen the evidence as well. Insurance companies seem to be a little bit behind on that, but as the evidence keeps on flowing for PT, I think it's going to actually go back up, have a little bit of a rebound. Also, the other thing is Missouri, again, it's not full direct access, but a lot of states are. And so Missouri will eventually be direct access, and then you will see better reimbursements and whatnot for PT as well. So right now it's just kind of in a weird spot, but I do think it has plenty of potential.
So did you prepare? And we got this question last week, I think, as far as, did you just go take your GRE? Did you prepare for it at all or anything? I know I just walked in and took it.
Yeah, I might have looked at some materials, but I, for the most part, just kind of took it. I was always a decent test taker, so I just trusted that I would do okay.
Yeah, which is something necessary. Now, some graduate schools, so if you're looking at PT, OT is the same way. We can talk about this. I think I've mentioned that. But to look at the PTCS.org is the website that kind of gets you a feel for just general requirements for getting into DPT school. And then there's another one. Is it OTCAS.org?
Yeah, it's PTCAS, OTCAS, and then they give you all of your application stuff, and you can use that to apply to schools and everything.
Find out about requirements and find out about prerequisites and things like that, which we cover all that. We know that most PT schools will require biology 2, where extra science only requires biology 1. Some of them will require an extra composition class. So as far as writing, because I just want to see improvement in writing in that. So speaking of writing, I know we talk all about anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, but we talked about this a little bit earlier. So Chase's Apex Clinic is open in February, so it's still a new clinic. They're doing a lot of marketing in that. How are you involved in the marketing side? So you're taking care of your patients every day, but when you talk about doing 50 hours a week instead of 40, why would you stay at work for another 10 hours a week? God forbid.
Yeah. Most of it's actually not too bad. I got to go to a Cardinals game and hang out in a suite and meet Dr. Paletta, who's the surgeon for the St. Louis Cardinals. And, it's cool. Every now and then you get cool stuff like that. But a lot of it is you just go and hang out with doctors and you kind of, you feel them out. I mean, that's the hardest part, I think, for me, was learning the marketing stuff. It's not it wasn't what I thought it was. I thought it was going to go in there and I was going to have to talk about myself, but it's really not like that. Honestly, a lot of those guys, they don't even care. they just want to hang out with you. And if they like you, then, you can get some business with them.
We use that comment, people don't know how much you don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You see it around a lot. And I know Coach Seitz, our strength coach here, talked about that. He got a job with the Atlanta Braves because the owner or one of the guys called him and they talked football for like an hour and a half and he got the job. It was nothing about his ability to do strength conditioning for professional baseball players, right? Which we don't want to downplay your knowledge or what that is. But as far as just your ability to hold conversation, talk to people, hang out, make small talk, have different interests and things like that. That's a important idea to have. So tell me a little bit about Southwest Baptist as far as you're getting into Southwest Baptist.
So getting
how many schools did you apply for, rather? So if these students are thinking about, applying for various graduate schools.
So I applied to 5 different schools. I had interviews at Mizzou and Missouri State. And then Southwest Baptist didn't have an interview. They did a 2-page bio letter thing. And Mizzou and Missouri State put me on the wait list, which I kind of expected because I took too long to figure out what I wanted to do. And they already had students in the pipeline. Like most of those schools, it's your freshman year. As soon as you come in, they are already looking at you if you've decided that you want to do PT. So a lot of them are already kind of pipelined in. And so I was just thinking, well, probably, I'll apply this year and I'll take a year off and then I'll get in somewhere else. But then SBU accepted my application and then, I went to SBU.
What caught you off guard as far as the level, like the difference between undergraduate and graduate as far as school went?
That's a good question. It's almost a lot of, I don't want to say memorization. But there's just so much. Like you as a PT, especially fresh out of PT school, you will probably know every major nerve, major artery, major vein, major muscle, its origin, insertion, its action. It's just a lot of information all at once. But you'll just know it. I have found myself starting to notice the little bits that I don't remember now that I'm 2.5 years out. And so that's a little humbling because I thought I had a steel trap, but you just review it. But that was the hardest part. It's just a lot of information.
Yeah. So speaking a little bit about being, I've talked to the students about this early on, but as far as the difference between being having resources versus being resourceful.
Mm.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I know.
Was.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah, PT. I like to think most PTs are really good at being resourceful. I mean, you don't always need the best equipment. You can work with just about any patient with almost anything. Maybe with just some elastic bands and and I don't know, a chair to do some squats on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you learn how to you get pretty creative as a PT. I mean, usually just because of your background knowledge of physics and kinesiology and being able to figure out what motions you need to have someone do to strengthen certain muscle groups and to practice certain activities.
And I know that idea, if you're going to go into fitness or be a personal trainer, I've walked into gyms that are like fully, and I got a pretty good setup here. I've been in gyms that are totally decked out with every kind of equipment you want. And then I'll have a client call me and say, can you see me in my home? And I walk in and they have like their basement steps,
Mm-hmm.
and they have maybe a pool table. I was like, okay, like we're doing push-ups on the pool table. We're doing some calf raises and step backs on the steps,
Mm-hmm.
And then can you get down on the floor, and do they have carpet, or is it all hardwood or something, So how can I get creative? What equipment do you want to buy? Things like that. So speaking of fitness, you're CSCS, right?
Yep.
So when did you get, so CSCS, there's the NSCA is one of the certifying bodies in strength conditioning and fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking about going into the fitness industry, Chase can speak to the pros and cons of maybe having the CSCS for PT in the physical therapy industry, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
The NSCA is the National Strength and Conditioning Association. One of the certifications is a CSCS. Coach Seitz has it. I have it. It's a common one, but it's mostly training for athletes, higher level, maybe fitness enthusiasts. But it's the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. So when did you decide to get that, or why did you get that?
I got it in the summer of my first year. So right after my first year in PT school. I really wanted it for a couple of reasons. For myself, for one, because I wanted to learn how to create my own fitness programs for myself, because I just enjoy exercise and I don't like feeling like I'm getting rusty at anything. And then I also thought it'd be really beneficial in terms of the demographic that I wanted to treat. And so being in the outpatient setting, I get quite a few patients who, quite a few patients who they have personal exercise routines and they want to get back to doing them. And I can kind of converge the stuff I've learned in PT and the stuff I've learned from the NSCA and give them a bridge, at least a decent bridge or transition to go from rehab to how do you get back into your personal workout routine. And I like that I can do that.
Yeah, which is key. It's as far as understanding the two worlds, because if someone does walk in and say, I hurt my shoulder, how'd you do that? Well, I was doing, dumbbell military presses.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be a PT who understands what is a dumbbell military press, what's a regression from that, what's another version to hit those same muscles, and that's so key, which I teach a lot here. That's one of my biggest goals, is that PTs can, as a personal trainer who knows athletic training, I was an athletic trainer, who kind of understands both rehab worlds, to where someone walks in and says, this is how I got hurt, or I want to go back to this. That's key for a PT. So whether you get a fitness certification or just what we study here, you also learn, Chase says he's like, whether it's staying in shape and fit. I know he plays ball and just stays active. But as far as, you'll learn so much from your own workouts. You get hurt yourself, you tweak something in the weight room, you're 1,000 times more invested in making your shoulder better than your next patient, because you got to get better. So
that's so true.
Yeah.
I have my own shoulder issues, and I did the same thing. I love treating shoulders now because I've tried a bunch of different crap on myself just to see if it works. And I was going to say too, another thing when it comes to being a PT and having that extra credential, just make sure that you don't get overconfident with that kind of stuff. There are definitely there are going to be personal trainers and strength conditioning coaches who don't have a doctorate, that are way smarter than you. I had the good fortune to work with a PTA who was also a personal trainer, and he also was an MMA fighter. But he was retired at this point from that. But he had plenty of experience in terms of working in that exercise, client field, and I learned a ton from him. I'm very grateful that I got to work with him for a full year before I came to Apex, because I learned a lot about strength conditioning and like basically personal training type stuff.
And Zane's kind of asking that same question, which is a good question for everybody. That if you're looking into PTA, it's one thing to be limited as a PTA because you can't do everything Chase does while you're working with the patient, and then you're not going to be able to reimburse the same much. Your salary is not going to be the same.
Mm.
But if you combine that, if you walk into a high-end fitness center, a Wellbridge or maybe a Lifetime Fitness, and say I'm a PTA, and I'm a personal trainer, you can work with a different kind of clientele. When I came in with my master's degree in sports medicine, they threw me every special case. This guy wants to stay in shape, but he had his clavicle removed because of cancer. This guy wants to stay in shape, but he has Parkinson's. This person had a hysterectomy, and so they're not quite PT like, but they just want to keep staying fit, or maybe they are seeing a PT twice a week, but they want to keep up with their fitness routine. And so it allows you, to go into a field as far as the advantage of being a personal trainer. It allows you to go into that field and be a pretty darn qualified personal trainer as well, or helping people in the fitness and wellness industry. The other part of that, I just lost my train of thought a little bit. Something else you just said as far as PT. Oh, just working with people. Now, again, you guys have started college in the COVID world, which is crazy, right? But typically, if you become a personal trainer, I've had students who become a trainer by, like, let's say junior year, and they'll go work at Edge Fitness or Club Fitness or something around. And just the practice of getting to know a client, walking into somebody, just saying, hey, how are you doing? What's your name? What are your goals? That rapport and be able to do that with another person is invaluable, right? So you can be book smart, know all of our origins and insertions, but if you can't shoot the breeze with someone for 45 minutes while you're working with somebody, that becomes an issue, right? So I think, if anyone is interested in becoming a personal trainer, we always, or CSCS or any of these we're talking about, come and talk to me. We can discuss that as well. As far as opportunities go, you said are you doing observation hours yet? If one of my students wanted to observe.
Oh yeah. No, I have no problem with that. I let students come in all the time, and also
Cool.
I talk a lot. I try my best to be concise and not talk as much, but it's because I really enjoy education. And even if I'm, not maybe the most qualified person to do it, I just still, what I do know, I like to try to teach. So I love having students come in here. Even I love hiring techs that are students because they seem genuinely interested, and I like to teach. I think it's fun.
No, awesome.
So,
you say you are opening up. You guys are hiring a tech?
Yeah, well, actually just offered one, unfortunately. They should be coming in here in a few weeks, to get started. So, yeah.
And are they an undergraduate student or?
Yeah, they're actually a PT student. She's from SLU, I believe.
Okay.
So,
all right. So, yeah, I know Zane just asked that, but we talked about that before, that just to get experience, to be in the world, you can make a few bucks. You can count that as some of your observation hours, your internship even. Like, I know you guys are busy. Everybody's holding down a job. If you're playing ball, waiting tables, and you want to make a few bucks too, it's invaluable to get into a clinic, work with PTs. That's also, you'll need a letter of recommendation for graduate school, whatever graduate school you want to go to, if that you go that route, or even if you just graduate and you're going to find a job, any letter of recommendation from someone, a licensed PT or someone in the world, can go a long way. So back, you mentioned this before. I always ask everyone, like, what's the one thing, and it's hard to say whether you could go back and study a little differently, or what's the one thing that you didn't, that's catching you off guard as far as what you need to know, or what are you using on a day-to-day basis? Maybe we talk about that with marketing or getting to know people, networking.
Yeah, the business stuff for sure. Marketing, understanding some sort of business metrics type thing. Right now I'm lucky that I'm actually still an employee of Apex. So a lot of the financial stuff, the profitability of the clinic and everything, they manage all that. And I just kind of look at the numbers and report the numbers, but they're the ones who are, deciding if they're good, if they're bad, if we need to do something about it, stuff like that. So it is nice that I can learn. I've got some help to learn about that kind of stuff right now. But if you were to try to start your own clinic, you need to know that stuff. Otherwise, you probably won't be open that long.
Right. And that goes for any business, right? So as far as we have our Entrepreneurship Certificate, it's a 2-year certificate. It's basically 3 classes in the business school focusing on entrepreneurship and owning a business, and then 3 classes with exercise science. And so it's an entrepreneurship certificate with an exercise science track. Which, so if you're thinking you want to open up a CrossFit gym, you want to open up a garage gym, you want to go back home and open up a place or work with someone else or partner with someone, that's a definite route to look into. We can talk about as well. Because the quicker you get into management, whether it's just scheduling people, managing other personalities, if they hire 2 more OTs and a tech, Chase is essentially running the place, right? You're kind of not directly, but more or less.
Yeah,
there, right?
Yeah, I still have to do. Yeah, in terms of personnel, that's pretty much all me. And same thing with hiring techs. Now they will hire PTs or OTs, but usually they pick a couple of candidates and then I choose from there. But no, in terms of managing personalities and stuff, I will say that even though I didn't have a lot of business education in college, a couple of the books that I really liked were some Dale Carnegie books. I think he's got some kind of timeless lessons. So if anyone, if you wanted to look at some outside sources outside of college education, I think it's how to make friends and influence people. It's a really good one. Sounds like it's about making friends, but really it's a lot of it's actually about just managing people, managing relationships. It's a good read. But yeah.
Yeah, and network. I mean, that's everything you're doing now. That you kind of have your different worlds as far as whether you're playing ball, what are you doing at home, your academic world is, but just thinking or beginning to kind of make this transition into what does my professional life look like at 25? What does it look like at 30? And what part of my daily schedule, your weekly schedule is being geared towards that? And so it's kind of balancing that out, enjoying the college experience, but also what are you working on that's going to help you when you're 25? So I know that's kind of about networking, working with people, understanding other people, creating win-win situations. I go through a lot of Stephen Covey stuff, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So the ability to listen to other people, being empathetic, being proactive, taking care of first, things like that. So here's a question. Maybe this is for everybody. People think about PT. Mighty Zane asking another question. So what is the biggest misconception that most PT or PTA students tend to have on the field of physical therapy? Maybe if you're a sophomore, junior in college, what are you thinking about? That's a kind of a misconception.
I would say it's probably just how busy you might be. You definitely want to, like what you mentioned earlier, you want to take a look at you want to get some observation hours, take a look at the different settings. For the most part, most inpatient settings are very similar, but outpatient settings can vary for sure. Some outpatient settings you are going to be going 100% all the time. You're going to see a lot of patients, and there's burnout's a real thing in PT, and it usually happens in settings like that where you're just constantly going. You don't even have enough time to finish your notes, and you're taking notes home an extra hour every day. That's how you rack up some hours that are unpaid, by the way, because you're probably getting paid salary. So you definitely want to make sure that you do your homework on what kind of setting or what kind of employer you're getting involved with. Are they a bottom dollar person, or are they a little more well-rounded, and they're there to make people better, but also they want to make some money. So yeah. So when Jay says bottom dollars, means are they just about the money, the profit, or ask questions when you interview somewhere? As far as understanding, do they value family? If you value family and you have a family life, if you're trying to get home at a certain time, how are you managing those things? What are expectations? Some of these things are so key. How about personal finances? We all come from different situations. I don't think we teach enough. We talk so much about fitness literacy and physical literacy, and I go on about movement literacy and kinesiology. But as far as fiscal responsibility and financial literacy, I think we're just dropping the ball personally in higher education. I'll say that out loud. That we're just trying to figure out how we're managing that. So how much were you caught off guard? Like, hey, I'm going to make $60,000 a year, but what does that really mean when it comes to net income? And what does that mean for paying your mortgage or your bills or and that sort of thing? Yeah, definitely for starters, live below your means for sure. I don't care. You can have a doctorate title, but it doesn't that doesn't mean you should ball out. um, but another thing too, I was lucky enough to have a couple of parents that were pretty financially responsible, and most employers in the outpatient setting anyway, they do a 401k matching program, but they usually make you wait a year before you can contribute to it. So right there, even though it can be a little bit of a hassle to have to switch over a 401k from not having one with the company and using your own to then switching it over to the company one, it's still worth it. I would say, as soon as you start working, find a Charles Schwab app or whatever, some.
Somebody mentioned Fidelity, and I just opened, I was right out of school working, and I didn't quite have that. And I thought, and my brother mentioned Fidelity, and I just got on the website, fidelity.com, started an account, linked it to my, commerce account, and just sent $300 over. Okay, now I'm invested. What does this mean? SEP IRAs, Roth IRAs. There's so many things like this that when you find out you're making a certain amount, you got to understand what a salary means. What's a gross salary? You're making 60 grand a year. What's a net salary, right? What are you really bringing home of 60? Are you bringing in 45, 48? That's your net income. And then what bills are going out, and then what money are you saving? They say pay yourself first. So if he does a 401k match, that just means if he gets a $500 check, automatically $100 goes off to Charles Schwab or goes off to his 401k. And that's that money that sits there. That's the difference. Dr. Babler talked about that a couple weeks ago, as far as building wealth on the side while you're managing your day-to-day income for your groceries and your cell phone bill and your internet bill and your TV bill and your Netflix bill and your, it goes on and on and on. So we can talk more about that. I want those questions, and we'll talk about that next time we're together as a class. But that's something I think that we're not thinking enough about enough. So how are you managing time with family? You got any family? You got a special someone in your life, or are you just working all the time?
So I'm engaged to, I guess she's pretty special. Yeah. And so we've been together for like 7 years. So and then COVID kind of made we've got about almost a 2-year engagement with COVID. But, we got a house together. We got a puppy. The puppy was that was kind of tough, I'll admit. And I'm sure the kid will be even worse. But yeah, managing.
You mean even better in a challenging way? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess, it's just challenging. Yeah. So having a dog and waking up an extra 30 minutes before I have to go to work, which is already early, to go and take that idiot outside and have her go to the bathroom. Yeah. No, we love our pup. She's getting better. But yeah, it's definitely, you have to find time. I mean, I have to now almost schedule out time between my workout and then making sure that I take our puppy Dolly outside, because I know she's got a lot of energy, and I feel bad if she's not getting to run around. So you kind of have to just start blocking time for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then all the other house chores and everything, mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, all that stuff. Yeah.
Owning a house is a whole other world, right? As far as everything goes along with that. And that's also, and this is a side note, but just speaking of having a significant other, if you're in undergraduate or you're looking at graduate school, where are you looking at? It makes a big difference. Where you end up being a PT, we talked about with Taylor a couple of weeks ago, that being in a small town might be more advantageous. Maybe the salary is a little better, but you're not living in a bigger city. As far as opportunities go, where you go to graduate school, having that conversation, communicating with your girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, whoever, is so key as far as what you're thinking about, and really checking in with your relationship to see how serious it is. Because I talk to a lot of students who make these decisions based, on these things. They base it, a decision to go to graduate school based on their boyfriend or girlfriend, and then, what does that look like when they're both in Arizona, and you realize you don't want to be in Arizona, right? So, all things to be thinking about. Anything else as we finish up? Any tips, advice? Wonderful quote for the students to leave them thinking about.
I'd say 2 things. So if you do go into PT or really any sort of service industry, I would definitely make sure you emphasize continuing education. Since the dawn of time, we're never right about everything. Science is always changing. Evidence is always changing. We're always getting smarter. So make sure you keep up with stuff like that. And then the other thing is, I think you mentioned this word earlier, but just empathy, trying to understand patients or clients, listening to them. A lot of times I get tons of patients that come in here who they go and see their doctor, and this isn't the doctor's fault, but they get 5 minutes with that doc. It's usually because the doctor and that whatever physician group is, they're usually very busy. And then they come and see me and they feel listened to because I get to spend a whole hour with that person. So do not underestimate the value of that, just listening to your clients or patients.
Yeah. So we talked about a few weeks ago. Understand someone before you want to be understood by that person. Get to know that person first, and which is kind of your empathetic listening and that as far as people skills go. Yeah, there will be a continuing education in all that you do. You be a computer programmer, you gotta keep up with the latest software language. You go into PT, you go into fitness. There's always a certification. There's always dues every year, things like that that are key. So, all right, any questions for Chase before we wrap up? Nope. All right. So again, I can send out his information. You're on fall break next week, but in a couple of weeks, if you're looking for observation hours, you're just still trying to discern whether you want to be a PT or not, what that really looks like a day in the life. If you want to observe Taylor, Elena, Chase, shoot me an email, or you can Google them. Google Apex Physical Therapy. Just look into it a little bit. We talked about earlier going in. Look at their mission statement. Look at their about page. Look at their philosophy. Just see what they're all about. Who do they work with? What locations are they? Just kind of get an understanding of who they are, and is that a place you want to be? So for mine, no. There's a reason I invite some of these guys on. And who we talk to. They're all good people, and they work for great places. So, but they've all been pretty different as far as Athletico versus Apex versus Sports Medicine and Training Center, which is sort of a mom and pop. It's just locally owned. So. All right. Chase, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yep.
All right.
See you guys.
All right. See you guys. Look out for an announcement as far as other assignments go. And otherwise, look for that announcement, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.